Japanese writing is a total mess, dude. And I'm not even talking about kanji. I'm not just talking about the part where there's 4 different writing systems either. I'm talking about this. Bruh. Alright, I know people are gonna be up in arms about this if I don't talk about it, so let's just get it out of the way. Kanji is actually the easiest part of learning Japanese. Just because you can pronounce words doesn't mean you know what they mean. So kanji doesn't actually make Japanese harder, it just helps you visualize what you don't yet know. Watch this video for a full explanation. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's move on to the stuff that's actually stupid. Number 1. Katakana. You know, for a language that had so much thought put into its 2,000 main kanji, it's had very little put into katakana, or at least not nearly enough. This is definitely the worst part of learning Japanese. Do you know how often I get these letters confused? Like, not so much anymore, but show this to a beginner and they're gonna have a friggin' stroke, dude. That is nothing compared to this. Loanwords. About 50% of the time I don't know a word in Japanese. That's because the correct word is actually an English loanword. You'd think this makes things easier. It does not. Because about 50% of the time, the nuance is completely different in Japanese than it does in English. Like, almost every loanword in Japanese isn't there because there's no word for it in Japanese. It's there because Japanese think it's cute when you say it in English. So this leads to, let's say, some pretty dumb shit. Oh, that's a nice bag you got there, eh? Oh yeah, no, how do you say I got it for free? Oh, that's pretty simple. You just say, free de getto dekita. Of course you do. And I can't tell you how blown my mind was when I learned what minus ion means. Get it? No, of course you don't. Hint, it's what you say when you go out in nature. Minus ion. Get it now? No, you obviously don't. They're saying is negative ions, but because minus is easier to say in Japanese, and ion because lol Japanese, and because, you know, Japanese don't do plural, it becomes minus ion. And that's not even getting into the actual word, dude. Basically, the idea is that negative ions are good for you, and in nature, there's lots of negative ions, so they say minus ion when they go out in nature. If you're thinking, wow, that is a mistranslation of a misrepresentation of some random English pseudoscience, you are correct. That's exactly what it is, but it sounds cute in Japanese. So. This is just one example among many. Like, you know, in Japanese, they have 2 words for muto, or non-sugar or sugar. We don't say either of those words in English. How did this happen? How do you have 2 English words we don't say in English? That literally doesn't make sense. Bruh. Okay, so we skipped over this earlier, but this also applies to katakana. Check this out. This is the small tsu. Like, it's barely any smaller, right? If it wasn't side by side, you'd think it was exactly the same character, right? Get this. The small one isn't actually a sound, but is used to make hard stops, like in Nippon instead of Nippon. Like, how confusing is that, dude? They're basically the same friggin' size. The reason they used a tsu instead of another symbol is to deliberately confuse you. You think I'm joking? I'm not. Like, imagine for a second, instead of creating one more symbol in your library of 50 symbols, you instead shrink the one that's most likely to be replaced. What? Are you, like, I literally cannot think of a worse symbol you could use for this. Throwing in a random kanji would actually be better. Anyway, speaking of misusing hiragana, ha, he, and wo, or wa, e, and o. Actually, this does kind of make sense. I literally don't think I've seen the proper particle wo ever written down anywhere, and o is used for the honorable marker, like onigiri. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure most words with ha and he are kanji words. But speaking of wa and ga, aka your worst nightmare. Are you confused about which one to use? It's simple. Just find a Japanese person and ask them which one's correct. This is literally what my first year Japanese professor told us. I'm not kidding. She was like, go find a Japanese person. Helpful, right? Step on the like button if that advice was helpful to you. Actually, this is the best explanation I've heard so far. And yet I follow this and still get it wrong some of the time. So basically no one knows and you should give up now. Put this together and what do we get? We get the single most confusing writing system ever invented. Just kidding, that's obviously still English, although Japanese love English for some reason. I hope you learned something. If you're studying Japanese and you want to speedrun your quest, I've got some helpful videos right here. I'm Weebjail and I make big brain weeb content. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time.